Third Saturday in October ends in another win for the University of Tennessee. Second straight home win over Alabama. Back-to-back weeks over their biggest rivals in Florida and Alabama. I'm Vince Ferrara, Josh Ward from Josh and Swain, and my goodness, the style points don't matter, Josh Ward. It's college football in 2024. You got to survive in advance to get to the finish line. The University of Tennessee found a way to do that despite another ugly offensive first half tonight, 24-17 win.
Yeah, third straight game, not scoring any points in the first half, but Tennessee in the second half was able to figure some things out. Nico was able to connect on some passes down the field. His pass to Dante Thornton on the sideline is a huge play, probably for him personally and for Tennessee's offense and what they needed to get going. Dylan Sampson continues to be terrific. He had the fumble early, and he said in the postgame, kind of carrying over something from last week. Players have taken their turns and making mistakes on offense, but I don't think anybody doubted that Dylan would bounce back. He has another huge game. Chris Brazel's touchdown catch. So far from the prettiest offensive game that Tennessee's played. Tennessee's defense once again steps up, and Tennessee's facing teams that has offensive issues. I don't know what's happened to Jalen Milroe since the Georgia game, but he's not been the same level quarterback. But Tennessee frustrated him the whole game. Tennessee's defense continued to make plays, different guys stepping up all the way until the end when Will Brooks picked that pass off and the game was over.
Yeah, Alabama native and Will Brooks. And, you know, you mentioned the defense against Jalen Milroe. Hit 41 total yards, and that was before like 30 came off of sacks. So Tennessee did an awesome job of containing him. That was a big topic of conversation all week. Another big part of it was limiting Ryan Williams after the catch. He was targeted 19 times in this game. So he got 8 catches. He is an elite receiver. So under the circumstances, he did have a touchdown catch 7 yards after the catch. For that guy that has turned games around, that was pretty big for Tennessee.
Yeah, Williams won the game against Georgia for Alabama with the catch and run there toward the end of the fourth quarter. So he's a special talent. I know people are tired of hearing about the fact that he's 17 years old. Doesn't matter how old he is. He's one of the best players in college football. But Tennessee's defense overall stepped up. The Jermon McCoy interception in the end zone is a big deal. Tennessee continues to be in the red zone, backs against the wall, no margin for error, and they get stops. That's another one where no points went on the board for Alabama because of McCoy's play. And they've done it in so many different games. You think about James Pierce Jr. last week at the goal line, knocking the football loose and getting that out against Florida. Those are plays that allowed Tennessee to hang on while the offense got things figured out. And that's how it played out in the second half for Tennessee.
Man, McCoy is playing at elite level. Let me say this. James Pierce Jr., I still hear people saying that James Pierce Jr. hasn't played well. Had 1.5 sacks tonight. 1.5 tackles for loss, 3 quarterback hurries. He's impacting games. He's drawing a lot of attention. Maybe statistically, this was his big game in terms of sacks. But he was like 4th in the nation in quarterback pressures coming into this game. He's played just fine.
Yeah, he was the SEC Defensive Lineman of the Week coming out of the Florida game. So I would recommend. No, it can't happen. I would love to see someone who is of the opinion that James Pierce Jr. is not playing well and has that opinion now, say that to an opposing offensive coordinator that has gone up against Tennessee. I can assure you those coaches would have a different opinion about James.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I thought the offensive line had his best game in a while. Like some of those misses from Nico, he had plenty of time and only, I think it was 3 quarterback hurries for Alabama, while Tennessee had 12. Tennessee also had 9 tackles for loss. Alabama just had a couple. So I thought there was time. That wasn't a factor in Nico's misses tonight. I thought the offensive line at least played a little bit better, and Dane Davis was mixed in there tackle as well.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't perfect, but it's not going to be perfect against an Alabama defense with talented players up front. But overall, the protection was probably the best it's been if you consider the competition. I'm not talking about a Kent State game or a Chattanooga game where they're not tested. So I think they have to feel good about where it was overall, the protection for Nico in this game. I'm sure they'll find things that they can clean up. But they'll face some teams coming up that may not bring as much pressure or have as much talent up front. Kentucky will test them for sure with what they have on defense up front. But it's been a huge concern over the last few weeks, the protection, the offensive tackle play. And, again, not perfect, They still have to avoid penalties, but they did enough, more than enough, I'd say, up front for Tennessee tonight.
Yeah, just a really resilient win for this Tennessee team, riding that elite defense and making enough plays in the second half to get to the finish line and beat Alabama 24-17. So what did you think about the fans storming the field and then taking it to another level and tearing down the goalposts, which are not behind us like they typically are?
Yeah. So this week on our show, Josh and Swain, Swain, who's from Huntsville, Alabama, he does not like the Crimson Tide. You might have heard that, but he did say no storming the field this time. Happened 2 years ago, made sense 2 years ago. This time, he did not. He was not in favor, and I agreed with him. And I'm not going to make a big deal of it. Fans had their fun. I don't know what Danny White thinks because there's a fine coming for it.
Right.
But, I would have said no storming. I did say no storming the field. Don't do it. But it happened. There are chunks missing. I know that the ground crew is glad that there's an off week coming up because a quick turnaround and having to repair the field, I'm sure they would not be happy about it. I don't think they're happy about it in the first place.
Right.
But it was a good scene. Not the same as 2 years ago. Last year or 2 years ago, I don't even have to explain to everybody what that meant. But now they've gone back to back at home. Consecutive wins at home against the Alabama Crimson Tide is something that matters so much to Tennessee fans. So, by the way, the belief is that the recruits kind of started it. So right here in front of us is where recruits are set up, and recruits were jumping down. There's a huge amount of recruits that were in town for this game. So recruits kind of helped get it started, and then all the Tennessee fans followed onto the field.
If it wasn't recruits, it might have been VFLs. Because they were pretty hyped.
A lot of VFLs too. Around,
How about Alvin Kamara eavesdropping behind the curtain when Josh Heupel was in his post-game press conference? It was pretty special, and everyone's really excited. So open week in Kentucky after that. Where's this Tennessee team moving forward?
I mean, Tennessee has a pretty clear path to get to the college football playoff, or at least be in a position. Tennessee's not guaranteed in the playoff at 10-2. That needs to be clear. But a win tonight against Alabama, now you're kind of pulling for Alabama moving forward. You want Bama to go beat LSU. You want the strength of schedule, which is kind of in question for Tennessee compared to other SEC teams. You need a little help there maybe. But Tennessee's path to be in at least a good position, it's there because Kentucky at home, got to win it. Mississippi State, Tennessee's going to win that game. UTEP, Vandy, we'll see. I mean, there's nothing guaranteed there, but that'll be one Tennessee's favorite. Georgia, obviously, is really difficult down in Athens. So Tennessee has 2 weeks to turn around. If Tennessee had to turn around and play another game next week, I'd really be harping on keep the focus because they didn't take advantage of the bye week before Arkansas. Surely players will lock in knowing what kind of opportunity they have, and that'll be at home. That's different than going to Arkansas. They'll have Kentucky come to Knoxville.
And that'll be on the coaches too. Whatever they need to adjust to make sure there isn't that, that taking it for granted and things like that they Dylan Sampson and some guys thought they had last time. So
and it has to be a big lift. The offense still has some things to figure out, and I'm not here's saying that Nico is now one of the top 3 or 4 quarterbacks in the SEC, but they hit plays. They needed those. Dylan had scored. Was it 8 straight touchdowns before Chris Brazel's touchdown? Like they weren't getting really anything done in the passing game of note. They can feel like coming out of this game, they've gotten something going. They need to continue that over in 2 weeks against Kentucky. But if they lose this game, it would have been so deflating to everybody involved. Instead, they rally in the second half. They make big plays. Everybody's still together. And they still have all their goals out there. The SEC title is still on the table for this team. Going to the college football playoff is very much on the table for this team. So locking in over the next weeks, now they head into November. That's the next game, November 2nd against Kentucky. Tennessee has a lot that they can accomplish still.
The touchdown pass to Brazel was the first in 3.5 games for Nico Yamaliava. You had to go back to the end of the first quarter against Oklahoma, or the long touchdown pass to Dante Thornton. So that has to hopefully open up a seal for him and make. Now, I think the throw, like you mentioned, to Dante Thornton probably got him going a little bit more. But man, to get a TD pass in there, and he handled himself well in the post game. All those guys seem really confident. So Tennessee gets the win, 6-1, 3-1 in the Southeastern Conference, and I guess we're gonna have a little bit to talk about on Monday all day on Josh and Swain and all of our shows.
Yeah, again, nothing. Everything isn't perfect here for Tennessee, but the mood is great, and it should be for Tennessee fans. And Alabama's got some things to figure out. I know that the Tide faithful not happy right now with what's going on down there, but that's not Tennessee's problem. Tennessee has a win to celebrate, and fans will and should.
Yeah, the sympathy department is closed for Alabama, I think, for Tennessee fans. So,
and by the way, Tennessee's crowd was great.
Oh, amazing.
At the very beginning, I saw Ron Slay tweet out that it was the loudest he's heard Neyland. He's been in Neyland a few times, and I don't know if it's number one. I don't know that. But it was an electric atmosphere from the very beginning. So even with the nervous energy and how am I supposed to feel about this team, that conversation, when the game kicked off, there was no doubt that Tennessee fans were in it. So the Neyland effect, all the penalties by Alabama, a lot of penalties on both sides, but Tennessee fans were terrific. It was a great environment. Press box was shaking at different times during the game. Fans brought it once again.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Ariane Carter was talking about how you could tell that they couldn't hear their communication in helmet and communicating with each other. So definitely the crowd came up big, elite as well, just like Tennessee's defense. Tonight, listen to Josh and Swain all each weekday starting Monday from noon until 3. Listen to Sports Talk with John and Vince, myself, and John Wilkerson on Monday morning, and then Eric Ainge, Tyler, and Will in the middle there as well. Then Sunday Sports Sound Off with Jimmy Himes and Tim Irwin. Josh, have a great rest of the weekend. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, that'll do it from Neyland Stadium. Chunks of the grass gone. The goalpost, who knows where they're at now. Maybe joining the goalpost from 2 years ago in the river. We'll find out eventually, but that'll do it from Neyland Stadium. Tennessee defeats Alabama 24-17. Thanks for watching. Follow us on all the social, Sports Animal 991, and we will talk to you soon. Thanks, guys. See ya.